If you go to the UK National Archive and you look for the CO733 box, especially 733/12 and 733/58, you will see recorded discussions between the British Cabinet and the Colonial Office that discuss openly how a Jewish settlement in Haifa would just be fantastic for them, and that placing settlers along pipeline routes would help the West secure the Iraq-Haifa pipeline and act as a buffer against Arab resistance. It is clear from these documents that this is intended as strategic oil infrastructure. Documents in CO733 note that British officials viewed Jewish settlers as a stable population aligned with imperial interests, indoctrinated enough into Western capitalism not to question this. While the Zionists may have desired a homeland, it is not European generosity that gets them there. The Balfour Declaration was a tactical geopolitical decision. Under British mandate, they had built the Iraq pipeline. This was now seen as their infrastructure, an imperial asset. Jewish settlements were promoted not because it was fair or reasonable or right to return, but because Britain needed infrastructure guardians. After 1948, Israel replaces Britain as the West's anchor in the region. Israel's role has historically been to spark crisis so that the West can intervene. And CIA declassified cables speak exactly to how Israeli control over choke points is guaranteeing Western shipping and trade survival. Israel starting fights with its neighbours is a tactic. It allows for the Western Empire to be the peacemaker, the negotiator, and then redefine the terms, renegotiate, control. Israel deliberately keeps neighbouring Arab states drained militarily so that they are unable to unify for oil leverage. OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It was founded in 1960 by Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. By the 1970s, OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, is furious at US arms shipments to Israel and Israel's control of Arab land taken in 1967. The Yom Kippur War, which requires its own video, is a breaking point. After this, OPEC members enforce an oil embargo. They cut back oil production and ban exports to allies of Israel, the United States. This quadruples oil prices and wrecks Western economy. Crude oil prices jump from $3 a barrel to $12. This tips the US economy into stagflation. The stock market crashes, unemployment rises, and inflation hits double digits. Declassified Pentagon memos show that the US and the UK were now discussing military operations to seize oil fields in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Abu Dhabi. In July 1974, the US Treasury Secretary William Simon and Undersecretary Jack Bennett traveled to Saudi Arabia in secret. They are tasked with negotiating the Petrodollar deal, aka force and coerce the Saudi government to sell all of its oils in US dollars. They also forced them to recycle all of their oil profits into US debt and buy a constant stream of weapons from Lockheed Martin. When the Americans present this, they say that this deal was the US offering military protection to Saudi Arabia. And they present it like how lucky Saudi Arabia is that it gets this finest military in the world. The Saudis were forced to buy US weaponry, whether they wanted it or not. This was about flogging junk from Lockheed Martin, not protecting the world. At the time, this deal is confidential and it's kept secret even from Nixon's own cabinet. The Saudis agree because they are literally left with no alternative. Declassified State Department and British Cabinet papers show that both Washington and London were developing contingency plans to invade Saudi Arabia if this deal didn't go through. A December 1973 British Defence Coordination Committee memo states outright, plans are being reviewed for military occupation of the Saudi oil fields should the embargo persist or if Saudi leadership resists accommodation with Western economic interests. The US also had rapid deployment forces in position and prepared to occupy. And since oil was still mostly traded among Western bloc powers, the US could also have blocked market access, strangling the Kingdom of Revenue. A 1974 CIA briefing, FRUS 1967 to 1976, volume 36 notes. Options exist for adjusting the internal power balance should the Kingdom's policies threaten US strategic energy security. In plain English, if Riyadh refused, Washington would have ground invaded the oil fields and backed a coup. So by 1975, all OPEC members priced their oil in dollars. This has locked the world into a permanent destructive loop. It's called the military-industrial complex. Countries have to first earn or buy dollars to buy oil, and the dollars other countries spend on oil. So let's say Sweden is buying Saudi oil. America is earning the money. It's called petrodollar recycling. Those recycled dollars are what props up America's deficit, funds her wars, and lets Washington keep inflating its currency. This decision also welded US foreign policy to arms and oil. The House of Saud today gets a standing US security guarantee and billions in US aid. Except it's not really aid because the Saudis can't do anything with it. It's aid attached to guns. So it goes back to Lockheed Martin, hence the cycle. Lockheed Martin, lobby Republican government, causes a war, Lockheed Martin gets paid, they're able to lobby the government again. The result of all of this is that the fiat dollar is propped up by oil and weapons. Not gold, not trust, just sheer inflated leverage. This is an ever-inflating balloon, almost symbolic of the decay of individualism. Trillions in petrodollars are then loaned back to the United States government. And if the US stops arming Israel or funding the Saudi monarchy, the dollar will collapse. If OPEC ever starts to sell in another currency, demand for the dollar will nosedive. The petrodollar system only survives because US guns and cash keep it alive. They are holding the Middle East to ransom.